Boop. Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, September the 29th, 2020. Only got one more day left in September. Today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 42, Exodus 18, 13 through 17, Philippians 1, 15 through 21, which is actually where I'll be today. Or you could have read Psalm 28, Judges 16, 1 through 22, and again ending with Philippians, and let's get into Philippians. Today, in Paul's writing to the Philippians, he kind of tells them the truth about preachers. He kind of breaks some bad news to them in talking about what he's dealing with. And he talks about envy and rivalry among preachers, and I say preachers, but evangelists, but preachers. He talks about how envy and rivalry is a motivating factor for some of his fellow preachers, which is, but that's not what a preacher is supposed to be about. A preacher is supposed to be about spreading the good news of Christ so that people can know and love Christ, and so that people can, spend eternity with God and find their great good that way by being present with Him. But he says, sadly enough, that's not how some people are motivated. And he uses this word, specifically in verse 17, in the New Revised Standard Version, it says, the others proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition. The word elsewhere shows up as rivalry, and the word is a Greek word, Eritheia. And there's a guy named Barclay. If you ever are looking for a good little daily Bible reading thing of your own that you could do, he has, Barclay's is a really old, a lot of people use it as commentary. You can. It's not really meant for that. It's a daily Bible study. And he talks about this passage, and he talks about this word Eritheia. And it's interesting. I'm just going to kind of tell you what he says about it, because he did all the work. But he talks about the origins of this word, and the word originally meant working for pay. In other words, it was somebody who was just a hired hand to do something, kind of like the way Jesus talks about the true shepherd and like hired hands. He's like, the hired hands, the flocks don't belong to them, the herd doesn't belong to them, so they don't really care that much. They're just there to do a job, where the true shepherd really cares for the sheep. It's that kind of idea. So it originally meant working for pay, and not out of any real concern for what you were working about or for, or what the end of that was going to be. You were just there for the money, solely to benefit yourself. You're doing a job so that you can get paid, so that you can do what you want to do. And that kind of had, according to Barclay, it had a negative connotation. It was sort of a low motivation to do things. And he says that it then got because of that, it kind of got this connotation of being, if you were motivated by Eritheia, you were a careerist, and is the term he uses. And I'll quote him here directly. He says, the word therefore came to describe a careerist out for office, to magnify himself, and so it came to be connected with politics and to mean canvassing for office. It came to describe self-seeking and selfish ambition, which was out to advance itself and did not care to what methods it stooped to attain its ends. And so Paul is talking about that he's dealing with these other preachers who, they're proclaiming the gospel of Christ, and he sets this dichotomy, right? Sorry, that's a big fancy word. It just came out of nowhere. He talks about in verse 15, some proclaim Christ from envy and rivalry, but others from goodwill. He said the ones that from goodwill, he says, these proclaim Christ out of love, knowing that I have been put here for the defense of the gospel. He's talking about his imprisonment. And he says, then the others proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, Eritheia, or rivalry, not sincerely, but intending to increase my suffering in my imprisonment. And so he's talking about these people that are, they're professing Christ and they're proclaiming Christ, but they're really doing it because they see it as a way to get power and authority and wealth and money. They're just using it to kind of boost themselves in the world, not really to proclaim Christ so that their neighbor might benefit from that. He says that they aren't so concerned about the cause of Christ as they are about their own cause. It's like like Barclay is saying here, is this like the idea of the politician who will say whatever the people want to hear and whatever sells so that they can sell themselves. This is kind of the idea. And then the problem is here that they envy Paul, his position and authority, and then instead of if they were really concerned about Christ and they were really concerned about doing the work of Christ and that Christ be proclaimed above all else, they wouldn't be so pleasantly surprised that Paul's in jail. They would actually be concerned about it because he can't be out doing his job like he's supposed to. But Paul's basically saying that they envied him, his position and his authority, and they rejoiced in his imprisonment because it kind of made room for them. It was I'm trying to remember the word now, and I had it, and it just evaporated. Schadenfreude. It's basically they are taking great pleasure in his sufferings because it makes things, as they see it, better for them. So that's really kind of a dark eyeful on the world of preachers that Paul is letting the Philippians in on. And now you got to ask, like, well, what do you do about that? Well, either way, Christ is proclaimed. That's Paul's view on it. Paul seems to laugh them off in a way and go about the business of proclaiming Christ for Christ's sake. And he says, what does it matter? Just this, that Christ is proclaimed in every way, whether out of false motives or true, and in that I rejoice. So, I guess it's kind of like the wheat and the tares, they grow together and God will sort it out at the end. But, it's a good question that we should all ask ourselves, because we're all really preachers, whether or not you're ordained like me, or you are still, if you are a believer, called to proclaim Christ. Why do you proclaim Christ? Ask yourself that question. What is your motivation for proclaiming Christ? And conversely, if you don't proclaim Christ, what is your motivation for that? Is it because it's going to make it bad for you? So that's the DBR for today, talking about Philippians 1:15 through 21. You have a good afternoon, a good evening, and we'll be back tomorrow. Boop.